And today we're discussing the leaders in South Africa's alcohol and tobacco sector with SABMiller and British American Tobacco. Next, we take a look at how SABMiller and BAT are exposed to the African market specifically, and it's a market that they definitely want exposure to, because if you're looking at the growth rates for SABMiller, volumes up 9% over the last quarter within the African market.
And high population growth, relatively underexplored markets, inefficient state-owned producers. It's got all the hallmarks of these big corporate giants to get involved. So we know SABMiller has got the JV with Castel in East Africa. They've got lots of operations of their own. They've been there for many decades, in many instances buying out breweries from local players and then building new ones. The one in Sudan, the one in Zambia. They're putting new people up in Ndola and Juba and all these kinds of places. The idea, I think, is to really be a big player and to try and migrate people away from cassava and millet and all that kind of stuff to the lager market and then to the premium products after that.
They've highlighted specifically Ghana, Nigeria, Mozambique, Zambia as targets for their growth. And it's interesting because they're looking at lifting sales by slashing prices, and they're looking to do that by getting exposed more to local grains, cheaper packaging as well.
Yes, I think they're starting to look at packaging plants. So I know a company like a Nampak would follow SA breweries wherever they go. So they'll have not a joint venture, but they'll follow each other so they can get the packaging up and running very quickly, and the efficiencies of bottling, etc., going very quickly. So SA breweries will definitely look at that. And then obviously on the farming side, this is also British American Tobacco. They need actually physical tobacco, and they need the maize and the barley, etc., for these. So they're starting to have projects where they're going into the agricultural side as well to guarantee that they've got the inputs that are right there as well. So they're doing a little bit of everything there to make sure that they're going to have pricing power and they can move the product very quickly. And that's British American Tobacco and breweries are doing that. So they'll have tobacco farms as well as they'll have at least JVs with the farmers as well.
Yeah, pricing power in a very competitive market, of course, as I mentioned ahead of the break, illicit cigarettes exerting pressure, making things very competitive, but also 75% of alcohol consumed on the continent is traditional beer, home-brewed beer.
Look, there is the opportunity, but in some senses that's also a risk. So in Botswana, where they significantly increased excise duties on beer, they saw a big sort of switch to moonshining and sort of home-based brewing and so on. I don't know though. I mean, they also have problems in countries like Nigeria and Egypt, where if the state isn't strong and there isn't, kind of careful legislation and control at the ports, that you get the smuggling issue as well. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it's all just a long-term game, and all of them need to be there, so that's where they're going to go.
It's very interesting for me, the kind of capex spend both of these companies are employing on the continent, because we've got SABMiller saying that it's planning to spend $400 to $500 million a year outside of South Africa over the next 3 years. But then BAT ruling out the possibility of, for example, of investing and building new factories in Kenya, saying it just doesn't make business sense for them.
I guess, look, but cigarette manufacturing isn't a particularly complex process. You dry out tobacco leaves and you rub them up a bit and then you stick them in the paper. So, the filters have this and that.
You sound like you're in the
By
business.
comparison, beer brewing is actually quite a complex business that requires some substantial capital investment. But in the long run, I guess it all comes out in the margins.
Yeah, what BAT has highlighted, though, is that it's rising costs, energy supply, that's keeping them away from these territories.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I disagree a little bit there with Paul. I mean, I think the manufacturing process for the cigarettes is very industrial. So they're running hundreds of thousands of cigarettes on a line, etc. So to duplicate that on an illicit side is quite difficult. But to run those very big factories, as you say, they need electricity supply, and they need to have enough security around the actual buildings that they're not losing cigarettes. There's no slippage there. So I think those are quite difficult for them on BTR side, on BAT side. So they're staying away from that and rather will import the cigarettes into these places.